Welcome everyone to Swimming with Sharks, Adventures in Sales Ops. I am your host, Will Smith, and this show is brought to you by Manobite. And we have a great show for you today. We have Bruce R. Dorey with us, the president and founder of Bruce R. Dorey Coaching and Consulting. And so if you're looking to get to the next level, this show is for you. So please stay with us because we've got a great show lined up for you. In fact, let's get right to it. Let's talk about today's adventure. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. For today's adventure, we have the word of the week. We'll get to that first. And then, of course, the bulk of our show will be our interview with Bruce R. Dorey. We'll then have our power play, wrap things up with a question of the day, our question for you. And then, of course, until next time, you are encouraged to not only engage with us, but also let's start a conversation. Let's learn together. Let's learn from each other. And so, during this show, whether you're watching from Facebook, whether you're watching from YouTube, or whether you're watching from Twitter, please engage with us. And if you have questions, especially for Bruce, if you have questions, please put them in the comments so that we can try to answer them here live. And if we don't get to your question, we'll of course follow up with you. And so this way we can start a conversation, we can engage, and we can learn from each other. So let's get to the word of the week. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. The word of the week today is HubSpot snippets. And of course, this is a tool that you can use within HubSpot. And I have said this many times before. I am, of course, a self-professed HubSpot fanboy. So of course I love the snippets tool. I'm using it all the time. So what is a snippet? In my experience with onboarding, a lot of people don't know what these are and they're not using them to the fullest potential. Now, if you're on HubSpot free, you get 5 free snippets. 5 free that you can just use. And of course, if you have more of the paid versions of HubSpot, like with sales, you can have up to 1,000. So what are snippets? Snippets are short, reusable text blocks. So you're probably familiar with templates, email templates and things like that. So of course, we want to break that down into smaller pieces. You have snippets. So where can you use snippets within HubSpot? You can use it within your email templates. You can use it within chat conversations, whether that is live on your website. You can also add them to your notes. There is a 2,500 character limit, which I have found is actually a pretty good limit to have there because it's just enough to do something with it, but you can also make sure that you have enough information in there, but it's not too much that may warrant to have a template. And so how do most people use snippets? Well, first of all, do not use a snippet as your email signature. If you're using HubSpot or if you're using any sort, you can of course create a much better email signature. So don't use a snippet on a signature, but what you should use it for are things that you repeatedly use or say. And so some of the more creative ways that we have found people have used HubSpot snippets is number 1, they create a list of frequently asked questions. Now, this is especially helpful when you are utilizing live chat on your website. If you have a list of, if you have 10 snippets, for example, of the top 10 frequently asked questions, you're able to answer those questions quickly simply by typing in the hashtag or the pound symbol, hashtag, and then whatever you want to call it, and then it populates the name of the snippet and all the information right there. So it's very easy to use. You can even, speaking of live chat, you can even use a snippet to give yourself a little more time to investigate an issue that somebody may be having. So, for example, if you have somebody that is you need to do a little research because they have a very specific question. So you can simply create a snippet that says, hold on a second, let me just check and let me do a little more investigation. Very simple. Buy yourself a little bit of time, and then you're able to do some investigation, Google search, whatever you want to do, and then get back to them quickly. And the last, and probably my most favorite way to use a HubSpot snippet is creating an internal form. And so, for example, I also like to call this kind of the poor man's playbook, because playbooks are available in HubSpot on the enterprise level. So if you're not quite at the enterprise level, you can create for yourself kind of a mini poor man's playbook. And what that is, for example, if you, a sales rep on your team, if they have particular information that you want to make sure that they get, they're recording their call in HubSpot, or they're documenting their call in HubSpot. If they just use a hashtag form, they create a snippet, hashtag call form, it populates the questions that you want them to answer, and then they type in those answers. I have used this for on many occasions because it really helps me remember what I need to ask. And so creating an internal form, Poor Man's Playbook, it helps you discover different things and make sure that you have the information that you need about the person that you're talking to. So HubSpot snippets, that is the word of the week. And so now we get to our interview. I would like to introduce to you Bruce R. Dorey. He has lived in Dammam, Saudi Arabia. I apologize if I missed the pronunciation. He's lived in Athens, Greece, Paris, France, and in Dubai. His career has taken him to all these different places, but he also had dreams of becoming a professional tennis player. Apparently he tells me he played in college. So, this wasn't just kind of a high school thing. He got to the upper level of the tennis world. And he loves to read Clive Cussler and Dirk Pitt books. He enjoys renovating around the house. And I got to tell you, quite frankly, if you're talking to a coach, a consultant, somebody who's always looking to optimize and get to the next level or do something better, it's no surprise that Bruce likes to renovate around the house. He's the owner and president of Bruce R. Dorey Coaching and Consulting. Please welcome to the Shark Tank, Bruce R. Dorey. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you.
Great to have you. I got to start with how did you end up in all these different varied places, living, not just, visiting, living in all these different places?
Well, honestly, it came from a fundamental, I don't know the actual psychological term, but I liked working on my own. When I came out of college, I was an engineering major, and I knew I wanted to be in the construction industry. I really liked the idea of things going up and watching these buildings go up. But I also have, I had an aversion to working in an office and being scrutinized, and I wanted some freedom, and I thought, I grew up in a small town in Canada, in north of Toronto. And to me, Saudi Arabia was like the most exciting thing in the world, probably the furthest thing away from where I grew up. And I didn't really go for the right reasons. I didn't sort of say, hey, I really want to live in the desert and learn Arabic and do those things. I mostly wanted to make a lot of money because at that point in life, when you're sort of a teenager, early 20s, making money seems like a really important thing. But I fell into something really great. I loved it. I loved the sort of travel. I love to learn the language, although I don't speak well. And I really grew to appreciate the culture. So ended up being a wonderful thing. Saudi Arabia is almost directly south of Greece. So what happens at least when I got transferred from a big American company, they put me in Athens, Greece. So it was the same time zone until my visa came up. And the visa was supposed to be, this is very typical for Saudi Arabia, the visa was supposed to be like a month maximum. It was like 8 months or 9 months. So poor me, I had to spend that time in Athens and test on an expense account. So, and I was 21. That was pretty cool.
Yes, very, very cool. Okay, so for our people, so of that list of all the places that you have lived, probably the most familiar for most people would be Paris, France. So, what is, let's say, to our audience, they're taking a trip to Paris next month. Where would
Yeah.
you say you must go here?
It's hard, but it's easy. Um, I lived in the seventh arrondissement, and the arrondissement is a region, is a section, and they started. The first arrondissement is right in the Louvre, where the palace essentially the palace, and then it circles around and goes out. So the first, second, third, fourth, fifth around. And I lived in the seventh, which is on the left bank. So I would recommend left bank, Boulevard Saint Michel, that whole area. That it's just beyond words. You can't really. But that's where I would go. So go to the Louvre, around that area. You've got everything within walking distance, and honestly, there's really, really great affordable hotels in that area. I know Paris is an expensive city, but you can stay in great hotels, and with Airbnb, it's really doable now.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You might want to rewind that part so you know exactly where to go. Whether you're watching or listening to the replay here, Bruce was very descriptive with this. So I would definitely take his advice from someone who has lived there and enjoyed the culture there. So thank you for that, Bruce. Tell me.
Sure.
Tell me about Lyft. Tell me about the sign that's in the background there. It's a tall sign. For those of you that are listening, it's a tall sign, and it just says Lyft on it. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, so after I came out of corporate America, so I worked in the air conditioning industry for many years. That's why Saudi Arabia,
Right.
you really don't have to be a genius to sell air conditioning in the Middle East. I fit that bill. And the same thing in Dubai. So I went to Dubai in 2005, again with a big air conditioning company. I stayed with that company, got transferred to Minnesota. So Dubai, Minnesota, that was a real transition.
Sure.
And then I was in corporate America for about 6-7 years, and that's sort of the opposite of Lyft. So if Lyft takes you up, corporate America took me down, and I was beaten up at the end of that period of time. I was not particularly happy and self-expressed, and I was like, oh man, I was overweight and like grouchy and basically, not the happiest I could be. So when I finished there, and I was essentially along with the whole senior team. So we were bought by a big Japanese firm, and they essentially escorted us out the front door. They gave us a great package and stuff like that, but
Right.
We were not going to be running the company. That was clear. And we went and did something else for a short period of time, and then I basically said, "Listen, I want to enjoy my life." So I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, which is a beautiful, beautiful place where I am today, and I wrote the book. So this is a book. It's called Lyft, and Lyft really is So I'm an engineer. Lyft is in my opinion, a beautiful metaphor. Lyft is an emergent force. So if you think about an airplane, there's no lift inside of an airplane wing. Lift emerges as the wing moves through the air. It's a force that emerges as the air passes over and under the wing. And I make the case that leadership and collaboration and accountability, those are also abstractions, and they emerge. Leadership, there's no leadership inside somebody's head. There's no accountability inside somebody's head. These things emerge in an organization. And I actually make the case you have to earn them. And that's really against a lot of one of the things that people either really like about the kind of coaching I do or they don't, is that I sort of say, look, you don't get leadership by reading a book or doing a seminar. You actually have to earn it. And the real leadership in an organization will come from the people around you. So people around you will essentially promote you to a leader, and that's that's a pretty natural. It's been happening for thousands of years, and the experience, at least in my experience, is that when I have one-on-one coaching, I actually have the experience of a lift. Like, I actually feel better. That's why when I left corporate America, I said, I'm going to coach, because when I coach, when I go to work, I actually feel better. I sit down, I talk to somebody at the end of that time, I feel better. I feel a lift. And it happens in an interaction. It doesn't last all that long. It might last, until I get in the car and somebody cuts me off or something. But so I think that lift is something that we can sort of earn or get by taking action, by doing work. And it happens, in my opinion, by contributing and coaching, and one gets a real, well, I mean, you probably know this, and people watching this know this, that when you help somebody, when you actually help or coach somebody, you feel good. It's a good feeling. At least it is for me.
Absolutely. And that is the single sign of a good coach, helping others, that you're not in this to just, pump your own ego, but you're in it to help others. And I think based on where you've lived and the things that you've done, certainly your experience leads to and really enhances what you do. So, Bruce Dorey, coaching and consulting. You're the owner, you're the president. Describe what you do.
Well, we have do a couple of different things. Essentially, we coach senior executives, so men and women who are usually 50 plus, that are basically saying, look, I love my career. I like being in corporate America, but I'm done. I want to do something else. I really, really understand this one aspect of my career, and I will make a great coach in that. A lot of people don't even realize that, but I think contextual coaching is so important, that if you've done something for a long period of time, you're going to be an extraordinary coach. And what's more important, when you go to a client and the client knows that you've had 20 or 30 years experience in a big firm with IBM or one of the big firms, then there is an almost automatic appreciation for, respect for the words that you say. You don't have to prove yourself. If you have, the thing that where I differ, and so what's different about me is that I actually have coaches on my website that if you want to find a coach, you can find a coach on my website, because I'm not going to be your best coach in retail shoes sales or in IT consulting. That's not what I know. I know engineering, I know construction, I know heavy manufacturing, I know banking to a certain degree. I've coached quite a few CEOs, so I know those domains. But there's a lot of things that I would recommend. Hey, a friend of mine who spent 30 years in the steel industry, he's a great coach in the steel industry. And that's not in since the 90s, that's not in the kind of the way people think about coaching. And the reason I say that is, and I talk about this in the book, in the 90s, we came out with all this human development, the human development movement, human potential movement. And it really was about sort of transformation and the secret, and you can do whatever you want, be whatever you want, and just by thinking something you can manifest it, and all of those things. They separated coaching from all this other stuff, which is sort of more in the domain of I don't know, what I guess you call personal power, personal development, which isn't bad. I think things like, for example, I think Tony Robbins is extraordinary, but there's not many Tony Robbins. He's kind of like a one in a million, and I think he's really, really good at what he does. But that's hard to find, and he's a really great motivational guy. But I wouldn't coach him. I wouldn't hire him to help. I've used his stuff, but he was definitely not helpful for me in my career necessarily. He was helpful for me in my mood in some situations, but not as a sort of a mentor coach.
So tell me a little bit about one of the things, I sent you a kind of a guest point of view. One of the things that you answered, I asked about a commonly held belief in the coaching industry, and you said limiting beliefs are the key to improve results. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Actually, I think I said limiting beliefs are misunderstood.
Okay.
The key.
All right, go ahead.
That's the key to... Yeah, they are the key. That is, but most people think that it's the limiting, that by all you have to do is focus on the limiting belief. And that is not, in my opinion, that is just not accurate. That there's lots and lots of good evidence. In fact, I have in the book, I go through the 4-minute mile in real detail. And I did a regression analysis. I bought the data. I hired a company to do the regression analysis to check my work. And the reality is, so of all the data that's available and all the data you can buy that's real, that there was really no change after Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile. People didn't start automatically running the 4-minute mile all that much faster. They ran it. What it did is it regressed to a mean. So in other words, people get faster over a period of time because we get stronger. Our nutrition is better. Genetically, I think we're just getting a little bit stronger and bigger and better. Equipment is better, et cetera. So you saw, and the data shows, there's this sort of a what's called a linear regression, a linear progression. And after Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, there's like a lot of myths out there. 30 people broke it, et cetera, et cetera. It's not accurate. There's like about 4 people, and there were 4 people in that year, and they were all going to break it. These guys they all knew each other. They were all experts in what they did. They all worked really hard and practiced really hard. And the point I make, Will, is that what gets discounted is the hard work and the practice and the skill development and the training that, I have people who come to me and they say, listen, I want to do great. I really want to supercharge my career and transform my career. And I'll say, well, listen, what are you doing? What kind of degree do you have? What are you working on? And I'll recommend that they read a book, or I'll recommend that they take a course, or I'll recommend that they kind of study something because they probably need to learn it. And they don't like that. They want to know what they can do right away. They want to transform their mindset. And I'm like, and then they'll say something like the 4-minute mile. And I'm saying, if you talk to a runner, like a really professional runner right now, and I interview them in the book, they actually get insulted by that idea that you could take a guy man or woman off the street, right? And just say, hey, listen, I want to help you transform your mindset. And then have that woman or man run the 4-minute mile. Or let's say they're just a mediocre athlete and you transform their mindset and they run the 4-minute mile. It doesn't happen. That is just like total nonsense. And what happens is people sell that as coaching. They sell that as, if you do this, then you will get great results. Hire me as a coach. And I'm saying, look, the way to great success is to find somebody who's been there, who's done that. So you don't have to waste time. I'm not about wasting time. I'm about finding out what it is you need to do. What are the routines and the practices and the skills you need to do, and develop those skills. And what you find is when you get some skill, you get confidence, you get self-confidence. And there's nothing like self-confidence. Limiting beliefs do nothing for self-confidence. If they work once, that is like a fluke.
Right.
You want to build a competency. You want to build confidence in yourself that you can stick with something and build a competency. And when you start doing that, then you begin to earn the leadership from those around you, because that's hard to do.
Absolutely. One of the things that when you speak, Bruce, one of the things that I like to hear, and especially I noticed this in your book, is that mechanical engineer mind, you apply that to so many different things, the data, the research, doing what needs to be done to make sure that everything is clear, that no stone is left unturned. And so I think that comes through when it comes in your coaching as well, that that you're going to make sure that whomever you're working with, no stone is unturned, no possibility is left uncharted, unchecked. And
I a couple of days ago, I posted something that the Dalai Lama said, and because the pushback I get, and I get pushback from people, and they say like, oh, human beings aren't just all data and science. I know that. I'm a human being. but data and science are basically just a way of saying we tested what we're saying. And Dalai Lama says that if science disproves something Buddhism believes, then Buddhism has to change what they believe. And that's not what I'm saying. That's what he's saying. Mm-hmm. That science isn't some like mechanical engineering, anal retentive position. It is basically just like positive psychology isn't like self-help positive feeling. It is really, they do research, and if the research produces what they hypothesize it's going to produce, if they think it's going to do something, and it does it over and over and over and over in different laboratories, different parts of the world, different kinds of people, different times of day, and all that stuff, then they'll basically say, okay, that's science, that's real, that can be tested, and it can be reproduced. And if it can be reproduced, that's science. And I hear people say, I don't want science in my coaching, but I'm like, okay, what do you want?
But that's how that's how you coach. That's one of the things. Yeah, that's one of the things that you do differently than everyone else.
Not everyone, but a lot of people. I think a lot of people now are using positive psychology as a foundation, which I think is great news. I think that's just the best. Martin Seligman and Carol Dweck, they have really changed the game. That people now they get it, that it's really important to do studies and really understand what influences people.
So what would you say that if, let's say I'm a brand new coach, or there are people out there thinking about becoming coaches, what's the first thing that they should do? What should they start doing? Obviously, it's not going to be instant, like you just explained. It's not going to be, an overnight success. But what would be the first thing that you would recommend they do if they want to become a coach?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, number one is identify exactly what you're going to coach. You can't, I would suggest that you coach something you like to do, you do really well, you've done for a long period of, you've done this for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. It's something that when you watch someone, when you interact with someone, you know the patterns. Human beings pick up patterns. So what you as a coach will do is you basically work on pattern recognition, and you're recognizing the patterns of the people that you coach. So it doesn't take it's not like you have to read a book and then you become a great coach. No, you have to like know something, do something really well, have done it for years, I think, for years and years, so that it becomes second nature, that you can sort of unconsciously do these things, because unconsciously you'll be able to pick up the cues from someone that someone might be explaining to you. Well, I went to this and I said this, and you'll be able to pick up a cue from them of how they're saying it, or what they're saying, or what they believe, or what they don't believe, or how they're approaching it. So the first thing is get really clear about what it is you're coaching, and then the second thing is there's a pathway to it. There's kind of like a flow of coaching, and there's a lot of books that you can buy, and that I have them on my website that I recommend. I do it, of course. And but the first thing you do is decide what it is you're going to coach, so that when you start coaching, you're super comfortable. Just, what you're talking about.
So would you say in deciding that first step in deciding what you're going to coach, is that also recognizing that you can't be everything for everyone? That there are certain people that may come to you and say, I'd like to be coached, and you may need to say, that's not my wheelhouse.
Yeah, well, that's what I think. Yeah, and that's kind of my whole. I've been, successful doing that for a long period of time. That I'm not going to be the greatest coach for everyone, nor. Yeah, so I recommend that is the first thing you do. It's like a good physician. A good physician will say, look, I know the basics, but I recommend you go to a specialist for that. And if people really value their career, and I think they do, you want to go to somebody who really knows what they're talking about, not just, I think the most damaging things are, and you didn't ask me about this, but I just think it's important to know that holding somebody to account is not coaching. Just holding them to account. In fact, that can be really bad. I'm just working with somebody now who they had an accountability partner, and that just ended in disaster. That relationship, they had a good relationship beforehand, and then they did this accountability partner thing, and they hate each other. Like, that is not the way, it's because the person who's trying to hold the other person to account doesn't know what they're holding them to account for, really, other than you said you were going to do something and you didn't do it. But that's not coaching. And I think coaching gets a bad name because people do stuff like that and they call it coaching.
So how would you recommend avoiding that sort of tumultuous relationship? How can we save that relationship?
Well, you hire somebody who is a coach and who knows that industry. So if you're in the book, you're in the book publishing business, or you're trying to be a book editor, you go to a coach that's worked with book editors for 10 years or 5 years, and you say, hey, here's where I want to go. And then you walk through like a whole process and say, here's where I am. Here's where I want to go. And the coach says, okay, here's the path of how to get there. Here are the things you need to do to get there. There's way more to it than just, a mindset. There's work to do, and it's really rewarding work because you learn and you grow as a person.
So tell me something about a tool, a resource that you feel people are just not using to its fullest.
Yeah, there's a couple. I think that's a great question. Well, as a coach, and this is a little bit different, but as a coach, I think my iPad and OneNote are the greatest tools in the world. So as a coach, if you're not using an iPad with a pen, because I like to, when I listen to someone, I like to make notes. I don't like to type. And OneNote is just sensational for making notes and then follow-up notes, and you can talk into it, make recordings after the sessions and stuff, which is what I do. And as far as another tool that I use and I like a lot is this thing called the OKRs, which is objectives and key results, which is it was a great TED talk by a guy named John Doerr, and it's just a methodology of, instead of looking at your year of 12 months, when you come out after January and you sort of set your yearly goals, and you come out in January, you're like, oh man, I got 12 months. I'm cool. I go to the bar. You basically break it down into 4 quarters, and you say, okay, what am I going to get done? My session is only 4 quarters, 3 months. What am I going to get done in 3 months? And you set up your life to be around those 3 months, and then you only set up like 3 things. So you're really focusing on getting 3, maybe 4 things done in 3 months. Really, really key, top of the list. You look at it every day. You look at it once a week. And I find that to be really useful. And people and teams that I work with, they really like the routine nature of it, because we meet every week and we kind of go through it. And it's very, very simple. It's not this huge list of things. There's maybe 2 or 3 things that they're working on. How you doing on this? How you doing on that? Boom, boom. And we can move through it really quickly every week.
Very focused, not only planning, but also execution. Am I right?
Yeah. It's called OKR. John Doerr's book is called Measure What Matters. And it was a really great, really very successful book.
Excellent. Excellent. So you mentioned something about, the cadence or the rhythm. That a lot of people or teams that you have worked with, that they really appreciate that with OKR. So tell me a little bit about Bruce, the coach. What do you personally use? What are some cadences, some rhythms that you have in your life that are just foundational to you?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question, because I use, and I bumped up against this years ago, but when I use, and I like these, I like assessments. So I use the Hogan assessment. I use the which is a self-assessment. And I use the leadership circle, which is a 360 assessment. But each of those, Hogan's a tiny bit different, but each of those puts you in a place. So you are here. You are like this static place. And life, at least my life, is not static. Sometimes I'm here, sometimes I'm here, sometimes, my mood changes. And again, Hogan reflects that to a certain degree. But one of the things, so the way I look at that is, I think you really have to learn to manage your own energy level. And a couple of new things. I don't know if you've heard of this. This is the Whoop app. It's a great app. Also the Apple. So I use these. I exercise almost every day, definitely 5 times a week. So it is really like, I gotta exercise. If I don't exercise, I feel lousy. And that exercise is twofold. So it gives me the physiological, the hormones, endorphins, and all that stuff. The blood flow, muscle, helps me to sleep, all of those positive physiological things. But then there's also that sort of, again, the thing about confidence, the self-confidence that I know I can do it. I know I'll do it tomorrow. And when I've done it, I feel good about myself. Walk out of the gym. You never, the old story, you never walk into the gym feeling really great. You always walk out feeling really great. And it is really getting yourself back to that really great every day, or 5 or 6 times a week, that you can get yourself back to that static point that you were measured on, whatever it is, the Hogan or the 360, because yourself in that position. When you're down, and when I use down, it really is a good metaphor, because your energy level is down, and you make different decisions. You make decisions that aren't based on who you are in the assessment, or what your mission statement is, or any of that stuff. They're based on, I am like tired out, I am worn out, I'm like, or you're depressed, or depressed or upset with something. All of those things can be, and I think at least for me, are addressed by staying with a routine. And just, I know I'm going to do it. I'm going to get to the gym. And even if it's 15, 20 minutes sometimes, that's enough. So that's one thing. And, and then I have a morning routine that I do just so that I can get myself essentially get grounded. And in a word, what that is just gratitude, just being present to some things in life that are working, that are good. I mean, and then going from there rather than, I used to get up and go through and look at all the horrible things going on in the world, or look at the worst emails that came in, and I don't do that anymore. I really kind of set myself up, and then I take on the day.
I love the intentionality that you have there. I think that really makes a huge difference. And knowing that even if it's not an hour, you may kill it at the gym 4 days a week for an hour, but you may not feel it that fifth day. But if you go for 15 minutes, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Right. Exactly. And I don't know where I got this, but there's this thing, this 3, 2, 1, go. It is the best thing that rather than really sort of cogitate and think on it, you literally just say to yourself, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. And you just go to the gym, and then you just start. And like you said, I've started so many sessions where I said, I'm going to do 10 minutes. That's it. 10 minutes. And then I do 40 or 50 minutes. And I'm like, hey, that was pretty good. That worked out okay.
At least start with the minimum, and then 10 minutes is better than not doing anything, especially when you're not feeling it. And
I've had many sessions where they're just 10 minutes, and I was proud of myself for doing 10 minutes. That's enough.
Absolutely. All right. So speaking of being proud of yourself, a little brag time here. All right. Tell me something that you've recently achieved that you're very proud of.
Oh boy. This was not on the question.
It was on the question. I'll lead you along a little bit. It's one of your clients.
I know what it is.
One of your clients that you helped him with.
HubSpot. Yeah.
Okay, so you've implemented HubSpot. Yes.
This is real. Yeah, because I remember I had a website, and I had a company managing the website, and I had no idea how all of that stuff worked. Like in the background, I would send my emails. Could you please change this? And I'd like to move this here. And could we? And now I kind of understand how all this stuff works, and I'm able to move things around. And so for me, that's a big deal that, I sort of broke through this like, it's going to be very difficult to learn what's behind a website, because people told me that for years. They're like, oh, you don't want that. That's way too. We'll take care of that. We'll just send you the bill. But now I don't do it all myself, but at least I know what's going on. And I would say that I'm actually very proud of that. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Tell me about your client that, of course, you don't have to go into specifics.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about your client that you helped along. Go ahead. I love this story.
Well, this is bragging on him, but this is a guy I've known for 25 years, and he contacted me. We stay in touch, but he contacted me, and he was CEO of a company. He always wanted to be a CEO. He was a sales guy, and became a CEO of about a $5 million company. He was in trouble. Contacted me. We worked together for about a year. He sold the company, which is a really great thing. Then because of that, he got hired by another firm. He got hired to be the CEO of a bigger company, about a $70 million company. Oh. And we worked together for a period of time, quite a long period of time. It wasn't necessarily sort of a dramatic turnaround or some, grandiose thing, but he definitely did take two companies that were put together. He was the CEO, brought in by the board, and he made it one company. He did an unbelievably great job, and they ended up selling the company. He made millions of dollars, and his life will never be the same. So when someone has, $7 or $8 million, their lives change. Their concerns, he's got kids and college and all that all changes. And and I'm proud of him because he really wanted to do this. He did not find it easy street. He did not go to Stanford or Harvard or any of those schools. He worked his butt off and got there on his own and really did it. And and he's kind of got what he wanted now. Now he's looking for, like, what's the next one? What's the next one?
That's fantastic. And also a testament, I mean, I know you're proud of him, but also a testament to the work that you did with him to get him to that next level. So I think that's important to recognize as well. So Bruce, I got to say thank you for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, please check out his book. It's a fantastic book. I have read it. I do owe you an Amazon review. I will take care of that. Don't worry about it, Bruce. But it's a fantastic book, and especially if the detail that Bruce goes into and the scientific mind, the mechanical engineer mind that's behind a lot of the things that Bruce does is so essential. So obviously I'm a big fan, and I appreciate you being here today.
Thank you, Will.
Thanks, Bruce. We'll talk to you later. So we're going to wrap up our show today. And ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about coaching, and we're talking about, doing your best and optimizing and getting to the next level. I thought, what can be the power play? What can be the thing that you do next that will help you? And frankly, I have found this, and if you can type faster, if you're, obviously everyone works on, a lot of us work on the computer. If you can type faster, if you can type at the speed that you're thinking, think of how much more time you would be able to put into your day. Think about how much more you could accomplish. And so 2 websites that I recommend, keybr.com, and also 10fastfingers.com. You can do typing tests. You can improve. Now, are you going to get better after just one session and one visit to these websites? Absolutely not. Like most things that are worth doing, that are worth improving upon, of course, you need time and, of course, patience and putting in the work. So, again, the power play for today is if you can type faster, you can type at the speed that you're thinking, imagine what you could accomplish. And so that's a very tactical way to get better and improve. So that is today's power play. And then finally, I'd like to ask you, and I'd like to, and please engage with us throughout the week. You can tell us now, you can tell us later, but let me know, what is your best HubSpot snippet? And I will go first. My best HubSpot snippet is after I'm finished onboarding with a client, I always do after I finish a call with them, whatever we're talking about, I put together a snippet that is very much like that form I was talking about earlier in the show. And what it is it's just our call follow-up form. And the first thing that I do is in that snippet, it says, our next call is scheduled for, and then it's blank, and I fill that in. Usually I'll put the Zoom link there, or if I haven't done that already, or I haven't sent them the invitation yet, I put the date and the time and make sure that that link is there. Then the next section says, preparation for our next call. And of course, those of you that are listening that are clients of mine and understand this, you know that this is very formulaic, that I say, okay, here's what you should prepare for our next call. And then after that, your goals for the call, here's the agenda for the call, and I just fill it in. It saves me some time, it saves me some effort, and it also helps me organize my thinking so that I know exactly what I want to put in each one of these sections on this form or of this HubSpot snippet. And so I highly recommend something like that to really get your thoughts organized and get them moving. And I will say, even though the content within that form or within that structure does change, I've had clients tell me that, hey, we really we know what to expect when it comes to the format and exactly what we need to do. And so that is my question for you. What is your best HubSpot snippet? Or is there something that you use? If you haven't even made a HubSpot snippet, is there something that you use on a regular basis that you like to use? And so engage with us through the week and let us know exactly what that is. And until next time, we ask that you please engage with us in this way. We are on all the social channels. You can contact me via email, will.smith@manobite.com. And of course, you can reach out via social media. But until next time, we ask that you please take care of yourself and, of course, take care of each other. and may all your adventures be great.